And in line with that, that idea of history repeating itself, and like you were saying about protection, things we've learned,
Yes.
how does that factor into the idea of things being chaotic and still allowing for the idea of learning from history?
History, as you say, repeating itself is simply another way of saying you're always given another chance to change things in a way that you would prefer to. If you haven't learned the lessons will always come back until you no longer need them. So when you decide to use the repetitions in your history, the cycles in your history, to actually learn the lessons of how to do things differently, this is what we were talking about before about the pendulum swing to the extremes. Until you learn the lesson to stay balanced in the center, the same lessons will always come back. The same opportunities to learn the lessons will always come back. Earth is a planet of cycles, and this is one of the cycles. You're always given another opportunity to learn the lesson. When you learn it, you end the cycle.
Thank you. This person is saying that they're saying, I am 55 years old and nearing retirement and believe I have followed my passion and synchronicity. Why am I discovering Bashar only now? What is my higher mind trying to tell me? What's next?
You are discovering this information now because now is the timing for it. Now is when you're ready for it. Now you can implement it, especially if you are retiring. Now you are free to implement whatever you wish that is representative of your passion, even more so. And therefore, there may be value in some of the information we are sharing with you to allow you the opportunity to do this now that you have timed the finding of this information with the idea of freeing up your time schedule.
Great. Is it possible for a human that has only ever known conditional love to experience and express and feel unconditional love for another or for themselves?
Of course it is. Again, the idea is you go through a process of removing the conditions on that love. It doesn't mean that you suddenly accept things that are not vibrationally compatible for yourself. It doesn't mean that you condone those things that you know you don't prefer. It simply means you have more compassion and understanding that someone is going through a process on their own path, just like you would for a child who hasn't learned everything yet. And therefore, you have compassion and love for them to see that they are on a path of learning, on a path that they have chosen to develop themselves, expand themselves, learn their lessons. And therefore, you can love them and support them in the doing of that thing without necessarily condoning the negative belief systems or fear based actions that they may take on their journey. You can help them understand how to make better choices, more positive choices.
And the next question is, I've heard you say that negative beliefs will do everything in their power, including hiding themselves.
Yes.
Will you please say more about this?
Well, again, you have to understand that negative beliefs will use denial to make it seem as if there's nothing to look for. So they use denial because a person that is in denial is also in denial that they're in denial. And therefore, it forms kind of a double protective layer for the negative belief that you don't even think there's anything to go looking for. You don't even start exploring. So that's how it uses the idea of denial to hide itself by creating this sort of double barrier, this double shell. Because someone can recognize they may be in denial of something and refuse to face it, but then the negative belief can also make it seem as if there's nothing to look for, that they're in denial of being in denial. So it can be a very powerful filter to break through. But again, if you understand that this is how beliefs, and especially negative beliefs, work, then you can always go exploring to see if you are in fact in denial about being in denial about something.
And the next question is, if you've survived years of sexual abuse at a young age and want to help others heal, but the perpetrator denies everything. How can you be of service when you cannot openly share your own experience?
You can openly share your own experience. You don't necessarily have to name the perpetrator. You can simply use what was done as a general example in order to illustrate the points that you are making to help others. So you can use it as general examples of your experience without necessarily pointing a finger at a specific person who may be in denial of their actions.
And next question. How do I live a life where I am aware of the negative but only experience the positive? How does that work exactly? And what will it look like?
Again, you can be aware that there will always be an opportunity to choose the negative, but you have to get to a point where you realize it makes no sense to do so. You have to understand very deeply and very clearly and very precisely how things work, how you create your reality, and why you would ever create a reason to choose the negative idea, the fear-based idea. And again, remembering the formula and the fourth step of remaining in a positive state no matter what happens is what will allow you to transform any experience, even ones you don't prefer, ones that are out of alignment with who you choose to be. It'll allow you to transform them and get a benefit from them no matter what they are. So the idea is to, again, to understand how this all works and to use it precisely. And then you can recognize there will always be the opportunity to choose something negative, but it will simply no longer make any sense for you to do so. You will never react even to something that you don't prefer in a negative way. Remember, it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that makes the difference. So no one is saying that something may not manifest ever again that you don't prefer. That's not what we're saying. It doesn't mean those things can't manifest. It simply means, what are you going to do if it does? Are you going to stay in a positive state so you can get a benefit from it? Or are you going to react negatively to it as if something is wrong just because it manifested? You're always given an opportunity to learn a lesson from something. So don't go by what it is, go by what you do with what it is.
Perfect, because that just answered the next question. So I will move on.
All right.
Um, Discernment, how can we best differentiate which information is coming from our physical mind and which is coming from our higher mind? It's not always clear.
Well, it depends on what kind of information you're talking about. You know, when you're honest with yourself, the difference between excitement and anxiety, whether it comes from your physical mind or your higher mind. So again, you just have to be discerning about, does the information, no matter where it's coming from, actually benefit you in some way, shape, or form? Or does it seek to limit and control you in a negative way? It doesn't matter where it comes from. Your own physical mind is capable of giving you information that's beneficial for you. You don't have to assume that the physical mind will always be trying to knock you down. So it doesn't really matter where it comes from, as long as you believe that the information, regardless of its source, is beneficial for your growth and learning lessons so you can advance and expand and move on.